Hello, and welcome to another episode of HR Nightmares. I'm Lisa Leith, and if you like what you're hearing, we always encourage you to hit subscribe so you get notifications on when the next episode pops. But we've got an awesome episode today. I'm really excited. Friend of mine, Beau Gunn, is here as our guest, and I'm joined by my co-host, Amy Conway, who you know and love.
Hello.
And we're going to be giving some free HR advice. So HR Nightmares is listened to across, I think we're up to like 41 states, with people writing in that are either employees of companies or general managers of companies, owners of companies. Also, other HR colleagues tend to write in and or listen. So we've got kind of like a full audience base. But we talk about lots of HR nightmares and stories that we've learned along our 20-year professions as HR leaders. But we love hearing from our guests on your stories too, and helping our listeners avoid HR nightmares. So that's kind of the whole thing is instead of writing a book and sitting down, we're all very impatient. So we like just getting behind a microphone and yucking it up about HR nightmares. So
I feel like you should be talking to my HR director about me if it's called HR. No, I'm just kidding.
Send them in. We're always looking for interesting guests.
We're happy to help them.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so tell us about, so I want to introduce you. So proper introduction is Beau Gunn is a general manager of multiple businesses. So this guy is kind of like a media guru in southeastern North Carolina. But he's got several different radio stations, a digital news site. Check out Port City Daily, although he doesn't write the content. Don't hit him up if you're bugged by any of the articles. And he's also a consultant for Live Nation, which is a pretty cool gig. He runs the company Beau Gunn Presents, not to be confused with Beau Gunn Presents. Mm-hmm. We heard there's a lot of money in presents, though. And he's a talent buyer and a concert producer. So you got to tell us all about this. What's it like to be Beau Gunn?
I think it's pretty good. I kind of fell into the concert producing side of my life and business through the radio stations, kind of as a need to promote the Penguin, which is the radio station that I program. In 2008, we did a show to celebrate our fifth birthday, the Penguin's fifth birthday. And we made a little bit of money. Then we did another one. And then all of a sudden one day I was like, oh, gosh, I think we have a concert business.
That's awesome.
So and mainly we work with subcontractors like to produce those shows. But so we get to work from, the biggest of stars like Willie Nelson right on down to, people that are responsible for taking tickets and helping to produce the show at the granular level, like, loading, security, stuff like that. So.
That's so cool. So how many famous people have you met, Beau?
Famous people that I have met, that's a good question.
Tell us about your most starstruck moment.
Willie Nelson was my most starstruck moment. So kind of when you're in the concert business, probably any business where you're managing stars or working closely with them, I think rule number one is probably act like you've been there before, right?
Right. Yeah.
Keep it cool. Probably don't stop and ask for a photo. Make sure your staff isn't stopping and asking for a photo. However, it's Willie freaking Nelson, right? So we had just had our first child, Maya, who was, I think, maybe 5 or 6 months at the time. Bands come fully equipped with all kinds of staff there, including a tour manager. So if you are going to do something like that, you usually go through the tour manager. I'm like, hey, you think we can get a picture of Willie Nelson? My daughter's here. She's just born, like really kind of buttering him up. But it was...
Did you get the picture?
I got the picture.
Awesome.
However, he does an eye roll. And he's like, okay. So, So he's like, all right, if Willie's going to get off the bus, he walks straight to the stage. You stand right there. No conversation. Just stand there. He'll stop, take the picture. He makes it clear like 10 times, do not talk to Willie. He's in a hurry from bus to stage, which is only like a 20-foot run. Well, Willie gets off the bus. He's walking. I'm standing there, and my wife is there and daughter. Well, Willie starts talking to me and asking questions about Maya, and I'm looking at the team like, am I at least allowed to answer the question?
Right.
And I did. I mean, I figure, Willie's the boss. But that starstruck moment. Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes.
Oh, that's cool.
He is was so sweet to us. And you hear nightmares. I bring that up because talk about
like the
HR nightmares.
opposite.
Yeah, there's like songs written infamously about how Chris Robinson can be difficult. He and his brother get in fights, they break up, unless maybe that's just kind of a marketing thing for the Black Crowes. But
all PR is good PR.
He was incredibly kind to us, and has been each time we've worked with him.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah.
Okay, so coming at this from the HR nightmare standpoint, I mean, what's it like to work with celebrities on a regular basis? I mean, day in and day out. That you gave us one example of like, hey, this was somebody you really looked up to, and was kind of a musical icon for you personally. But like for other people that maybe you don't even like their music, know their music, but you get them to come to the amphitheater and you're promoting their concert, and you just have to work with them, like everything, like you said, from like. Making sure their bus has a great place to park. They don't get commandeered by a bunch of like excited patrons. The contracts are buttoned up. You've got all the lighting, the sound, what's it like to work with these people? I
think, you have the artist who's usually generally well taken care of by his entourage, but you got to remember that there is a crew of anyone, 10 to 20 people that are on the road living out of suitcases. They really are dependent upon your staff to make that day warm and inviting for them and to go as smoothly as possible. And if you don't have that buttoned up, generally you have to have meals provided, easy parking, things like that. Proper equipment to maybe load the stage on and off. So you have your star at that level. They don't really experience any of that. They kind of hop off the bus generally and play their gig if they're big enough. But if you don't have a warm, inviting, and well-run opportunity for their lower-end staff, you can really screw up the entire day, the entire performance. If they're not happy, it will get back to the artist. It will get back to the agent. And unfortunately, I had to learn that the hard way on several occasions starting out, just basic things that they were used to with veteran promoters that we did not have and provide, that you quickly learn about, and then you kind of you impress upon your subcontractors or staff that, these are the people that will make the job really difficult on you that day if you don't have it buttoned up.
Yeah, I could just like picture, people are always interested in like how you got to where you are. Anybody who's sitting in the guest seat, people always want to know like what's the journey, and it sounds like you have a really cool job, but most people probably think, oh, you just gotta love music and you gotta like love to party. But in reality, there's like you have to have really strong relationships with all these subs so they show up on time every time. And also like you have to be the ultimate organizer and prepare. You must love preparing. Or you have a team that loves preparing.
I have a team that pays attention to detail.
He's like, I'm like the artist that kind of shows up, and you're like,
I really like to party and I love music.
Other people are the preparers.
I was just upset. Let's put it this way: I was upset when Willie stopped and talked to me. No. You do have to. You do have to prepare. We'd kind of talked about it before, like about like just union staff and loaders and stuff like that. In which case, I have ran jobs where there wasn't a union house operated, and there is. I really genuinely, I like working with unions. There's a level of at least in the concert business, which is my only experience there, of professionalism and experience. Oftentimes, they're more well paid because concerts are going to make a good bit of money, and usually the agents and managers and artists take some of that. But if you have kind of like, look, this is a dictate on what they're going to make an hour, there's just a level of professionalism and reliability that, especially when you're talking about someone that might hinges on something like that. Loader doesn't show up, 2 loaders don't show up. Out of 8, that's a big difference on how long it takes to unload and load a truck at the end of the night, beginning of the day. All that sets the tone, and I can tell you from experience that a bad day for their staff, the band staff, will make it back to the agents and management. Whether the artist thought it was the greatest time ever, most likely they won't come back to that city. So like a lot of things in life, first time to make a good impression, and you really have to make sure that those attention to details, right on down to, it's crazy. We've all heard like green M&Ms on the rider and things like that. Oftentimes, they have quirky things on their riders, which is like, the list that comes.
Yeah.
They have those to make sure that you're paying attention. It's not necessarily because someone wants green M&Ms. It's because they want to make sure you read page 6.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Okay.
And make sure that you've read that and you've paid attention to it and you've taken the extra effort.
The details.
And by the way, I've never ran into a rider with that someone needs green M&Ms.
Stupid.
there's been some stupid stuff, but
Like what kind of stupid stuff?
Oh gosh.
Like Blanton's, I only want the L horse on the top and stuff
Well,
like that.
yeah. I guess
luck
to be
finding
fair,
that.
it's not. Well, that's the thing is, it's not. It might not be stupid, but there. It seems like every band of requirements, not necessarily if you can play bass well or drums good, is you got to have a vegan in every band, and then you got to have impossible things to find for the vegan in every band that may or may not be at Whole Foods or Title
Special
Creek.
cashew sauce.
Right,
and
right.
stuff
Totally,
like that.
stuff like that. And it's like, you talk about a nightmare. It's like, okay, it says this particular kind of almond butter, and I haven't found it in 8 places. Like, do I keep driving around, or what kind of almond butter is it okay?
Who do I break
Yeah.
it to?
So, and sometimes it's an intern or someone, and it's like, okay, man, yeah, you spent 6 hours shopping that rider. Let's get back here. But
Yeah. That is interesting about the unions. So there's a lot going on just like in 2023 with regards to union organizing. We even have here in little old Wilmington, North Carolina, we've got like a Starbucks that unionized on Middle Sound and Market
No
Street.
kidding.
Yeah. The first one in North Carolina, I think, and they just did it in the last couple of months. But
crazy to
there's
me.
a whole it's crazy, but it's not crazy, because think about this. Like, you've got all this quiet quitting going on. You've got overworked employees. Like, we're asking people for not just discretionary effort, but give me 110% of the time.
Right.
We've got unrealistic expectations in a lot of companies. We have bad communicators leading companies. I mean, it's kind of not surprising that unions are getting a little spotlight again, but I do understand when you've got to run a show, and run a show isn't just like what songs is the artist going to play during the show. It starts many weeks in advance.
definitely
Right?
many weeks in advance to lead up to that date, and
Yeah.
months in advance to book the band. It doesn't take that long to book them, but the planning,
The
they're
planning.
routing. We're routing
Right.
fall right now. Like,
But
we're
then you
booking
think
bands
of-
for the
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
you
And
think of
it's
the run a
March.
show and union folks. And like, when you think of union jobs, it's usually not optimal for business owners, because you want people to be able to flex and cross train. But when you have a very specific run of show, especially that day with loaders and bus drivers and ticket takers, and like, it is kind of, I could see how that could be helpful when everyone knows exactly what their job is and they stick to exactly the, it's siloed.
Yeah, the
jobs.
expectations are super clear, and
Yeah.
you just want experts that have
Yeah.
do
They're
kind of the same
executing,
process.
they're getting paid well, so
time.
they're going to show up on time because they want to make that really good hourly rate. And the expectations are super clear. So I would think that, that could be very
For me,
helpful.
who was kind of learning on the job as I went, like, I didn't set out to start a concert production business. I didn't know too much about unions, but assumed like, oh gosh, that's going to be more money, and maybe they're going to hold my feet to the fire here and there. And it has been just a wonderful experience all around. And I do feel like it's a fair shake. Like, given the opportunity, at times it was like we budgeted this maybe for the loaders or the people who really make the job or the day-to-day operations run, make sure the equipment's there and set up. It would be tempting for especially a promoter starting out to kind of go on the low end of that,
Yeah.
or maybe find the guys from the local bands here and there. But there's, again, a level of professionalism, and those bands and crew that are on the road that work with union houses or non-union houses, they recognize it right away. They recognize when they can kind of use that inside lingo to say, go set this up here, rather than explaining what front
Yeah.
of house stage means or stage left. There's a
Yeah.
difference. So I personally, I think I thought
It's been
maybe
good.
that I would have a negative experience or potential negative experience, and I haven't, and I've enjoyed it.
Cool.
So I'm curious, going back to just like some general jobs, like, what if someone was out there in school right now or college, like, are they getting a degree in a certain field? What kind of entry level jobs are they working in? Like, what is kind of the career path? Obviously, you had some different things that led you
Yeah.
to what you're doing, but what would you tell, our listeners that are kind of at that entry level? I'm really interested in this as a path, but I don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
I believe in this. If the opportunity is there, pretty much for any job, but is an internship. I mean, if you have the means to do so, even if you've graduated, I mean, if it's like, hey, an unpaid opportunity to, just get your foot in the door that way, improve your worth, learn from, take it as maybe it's not financial compensation. I recognize everyone can't do that, but, just the education part of it alone can be worth so much money in and of itself.
Where'd you intern? The Penguin?
I interned at the Penguin.
Okay.
I did. So I'm a very firm believer in that, which is just to kind of reiterate, I'm the program director now, but I interned at the Penguin, and my internship started on the Penguin's first birthday. I didn't get a job right out of college, but a few months after that, I heard an ad on the Penguin for salespeople. Got a job then, and then had the opportunity to program the station, which is unrelated to my sales job there.
But you got a degree in communications.
I did.
Right?
Yeah. And I don't think, the comm studies degree did not prepare me to run a radio station.
Okay.
But it did afford me the opportunity to have that internship. I don't think I would have been looking for a radio station internship had I been, studying, physical education or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. So
what do you think about terrestrial radio versus satellite radio and jobs in either one of those? Like, should students at UNCW aspire to be a program director at a terrestrial radio station, or should they be thinking about other types of media to direct programs for?
I think that it is if you're kind of narrowing down the field that you want to maybe be a program director of some sort, then it probably is follow your passion. Satellite versus terrestrial, there's going to be a lot more jobs in the terrestrial radio field. It's interesting, where does that FM AM, kind of think about it, where does FM AM exist years from now? And it's not a versus like satellite. Like, it's had its day, it's existing over here. FM and, radio itself, traditional radio is still, making more money than it ever has. So those two things can coexist and have no problem coexisting. But it's like, where does the FM signal, AM's kind of where it is, but does terrestrial radio eventually morph into you're streaming, like, streaming from the app of the radio station, right, rather than relying on it? Right now, it's still about 80%, maybe even 85% on average. Listeners to a radio station still tune in through the traditional bandwidth versus streaming.
Who'd you intern with?
Who'd I intern with?
Yeah.
A retailer.
A retailer?
Yeah, it was like a Saks Incorporated company. I don't even know that they exist any longer. I think it was one of their brands that dissipated.
Way to go.
Yeah. Because I was so good at my job. No, I was like an intern. It was cool though. I was the only intern in this huge department store in downtown Indianapolis. And I did everything. I would sell shoes on the weekend and work in customer service. I did some gift wrapping. And I would work the cash room.
Did you have to?
Yeah, I did all kinds of stuff.
Did you have to? I had to interview for my internship. I think it was kind of a check the box. I don't think there was a room full of people trying to get this position. But even that experience alone, it was like, that was my first interview in a professional setting. I was still in college. I just love that opportunity for anyone who's trying to start out.
I loved it, the internship just for exactly like I said. I worked for a company that we had a lot of interns, for 2 decades, and we had a lot of interns, but they didn't get anywhere the kind of experience that I did by being the only intern in a 3-floor, 400,000 square foot store and just running around the building doing everything.
Being a gopher.
Yeah, I accidentally set off the I'm being held up and robbed alarm.
Oh, no.
That I was working in customer service one day, and
Wonder
I was
what this
under the
button does.
register.
Internship blunders.
And I think I hit it somehow. I was searching for something under the register, and all of a sudden police were in the building, and I got in a little bit of trouble for that. But I wasn't in trouble, but I think people afterwards thought I was a moron. So
it was a new hire orientation.
I had to really prove myself
from
after
there
that
on
I
out.
was not a moron.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
But yeah, I think that especially in events and media and different things, there's so many different facets that go along with that job, and so many nuances from the people producing to the people hosting, right? And I feel like that's a good place to start.
There's kind of entry level positions, but I don't know that they have, that, what's the word?
Career
progression.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
So you can kind of get your feet wet there. I imagine if you're determined enough, it might make some good networking and some inroads. But
yeah, but there's a lot of hourly jobs that
Right.
just kind of
Seasonal
don't
too, specifically.
go beyond that position.
Yeah.
How would you get a job like working behind the stage, like helping to do the checklist, make sure the loaders are here? How do I work for Beau Gunn Presents or a company like you?
So, I mean, like Live Nation, who I buy talent on behalf of for Greenfield Lake here in Wilmington, they are always having job fairs again. So that's a good
Oh,
opportunity.
I saw one actually. They
Yeah.
were at Greenfield Lake. They were just having an open job fair.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I saw a social media posting about
And
it.
I've had
cool.
a couple of interns over the years, specifically with Beau Gunn Presents, and one individual is now helping to run actually Red Rocks out there, and
Wow.
and the indoor venue. I don't know that I taught him all this, but again, he got a passion for
but
it.
it makes
I
you
did. I
proud.
guarantee you, I didn't. Oh, it
Cool
does.
venue though.
You didn't screw
Could
his
he
life
get you
up.
some
so-
tickets out in Red Rocks?
That's right. Oh yes, he could for sure. Jonathan stays near and dear to me.
Love you, Jonathan.
Yeah. So.
Have you earned yourself any nicknames along the way? Speaking of HR nightmares.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, oh, we're not
People
I was
fans
like,
of
think
the
Beau
music-
Gunn is
the music
nickname.
man?
People, no, I
Yeah,
mean,
Beau Gunn.
actually,
I mean, Beau Gunn is an epic
nothing
name.
stands out.
Your
Yeah.
parents did a great job there.
People think, because I'm on the radio as well in the afternoon, and people will ask me what's my real name. Okay, I know.
Well, because there's Shannon Gunn on Sirius XM.
Yeah.
She's like the hard rock chick.
Yeah, no, I did not know that. Well,
Yeah.
there's a Tommy Gunn who's in radio here as well. So I get asked, like, is that your brother? And then, but
That's
no, just I
actually
think.
an epic
They're
name,
like,
too.
so they think that's like your
Yeah.
show name,
Yeah,
and
they
that
think
you
it's my
must have
show
a real
name.
name.
Yeah, what's my
Got
real name?
it.
So I think maybe my radio name should be like John Smith or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know, John Doe. But that's my name. And I feel like that's pretty good. The Music Man, nothing like that. I did get, for a while, I was hosting Pingo, which is the Penguins version of Bingo, and I realized I had been hosting it a little too long when I got noticed in the grocery store as the Bingo guy and not the radio guy or whatever. And so I was like, I don't want to be the
man.
Bingo guy at this age.
No.
I got a lot of experience though when I get
The
to the
bingo
retirement
guy.
home. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What are some of kind of the obstacles you face? So, I'm not going to get into the controversial subject of, Live Nation and
Right.
some of the different things that have happened with them merging. But I am curious, because Greenfield Lake was not always a Live Nation venue, correct?
That's correct.
And
Yeah.
so that's happened in the last handful of years. Like, what have been, are there obstacles, or do you see a great benefit to Live Nation taking
Well,
over?
I see a lot of good benefit to them having taken over, and there's definitely some hurdles, mainly in the ticketing arena,
Mm-hmm.
because when you Live Nation generally comes Ticketmaster, and for all the great services they provide, they also provide, or they don't provide, but service fees come along with that. One of the biggest challenges that we all face, though, but really particularly hit our industry was COVID. I mean, it took everything away from the live music and touring business. And so what came from that is when 2021, everybody opened back up, you had a floodgate of artists wanting to hit the road, and then therefore the demand, the supply and the demand both
Right.
spiked.
That's how they really make their money nowadays, though,
Well,
right?
it is. And
Yeah.
so the ticketing from the agent level, coming directly probably from the bands and management, all kind of increased a little bit, and then had to increase again because gas was expensive and all these other things that were prices were rising. So the tickets have increased, because just the face value portion of it has increased, and then
Right.
again at Greenfield Lake, it went from a non-Ticketmaster venue to a Ticketmaster venue, so there was a little more fees that were attached to it. So as beautiful and great feedback as we get there, specifically at Greenfield Lake, we have also seen an increase in just kind of disdain for the ticket prices.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wade in on social media to such what feels like a hot button issue, but some of it is warranted. The fees are what they are, and you see a ticket for $30 and you go check out and it's $45, and that's enough to make anybody like, what the heck? This is frustrating. But it is kind of that's where it is, and a lot of it though. What I want to point out is, hey, the artists are also asking for a little bit more money, and that's because maybe they can get it, and B, because they're trying to recoup income that was lost for the last 2 years.
And hopefully with those
Absolutely.
fees, like you're getting a great run of show, you're getting a great venue, you're getting a whole staff that's ready to produce the show on time, like with the talent that
You
you
do.
were promised.
Yeah.
And so
I think people forget
You
that
gotta
it's
pay
not
for a
just
great
about
show.
the artist, but you think about the amount of employees that it takes to pull off any kind of one show,
It's
and you
huge.
pay for that in all of that pricing.
You
not
do.
that still like warrants Taylor Swift, $16,000
That's
for a
pure
ticket.
silliness.
Yeah.
Do not. Beau had nothing to do with that, so don't reach out to him about Taylor Swift tickets.
Yeah, if it's something that's going really good, I'll take credit for it.
Beau Gunn Presents.
That's right.
Okay. Well, talk to us about just like, has there been anything intolerable like over the course of doing this for 20 years or so that like running this business or being in this business, is there anything intolerable or things that you've changed over time for your own staff or colleagues?
You know, I'd love to answer that. Nothing comes to mind that has been intolerable. One thing that we have probably tried to lean into is to produce more shows. For a while, I was letting the agents kind of come to us and never really had much of an urgency to do like a show counts. Like, so if you reach out to an agent and you kind of they get the sense that you have to have this show, then there might be a little bit of a fluff up in the what they're guaranteed, what they might be asking. So for a while, when I was just starting out and didn't really have that much cash flow, I would kind of let the shows come to me. But one thing we have made a conscious decision on doing is trying to produce 40 shows a year at Greenfield Lake Amphitheater, which is a major uptick from what we had done prior to COVID, which was no more than 20.
Wow.
Last year, I think we hit
congratulations.
35.
That's great.
Yeah.
This year, we're at 33, and it's March. The show hasn't even played off yet, so we'll probably hit the 45 range. Big question mark, at least in this market, is what can Wilmington, North Carolina sustain? We have that other larger venue that Dave Matthews and Fish and Robert Plant are playing at this year, but how much disposable income is there for entertainment, for live music? So we're kind of going to learn all that this year. We'll
How
see.
many people does Greenfield Lake hold?
That's 1,400.
1,400.
Yeah,
and then Live Oak, our other one, is like
72.
7,000.
Yeah, 7,200.
Yeah.
So it's five
I
times
mean,
the size.
I will say, typically when you look, like the stuff at Greenfield Lake is usually sold out pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe a little bit different from straying away from HR nightmares, but it is still a nightmare nonetheless when you have a lot of folks that are disappointed because they wanted tickets and they're kind of looking to figure out where do you place that blame, and you can't just kind of snap back like, hey, it's supply and demand, because they don't want to hear that. But oftentimes, I mean, when you're overachieving and you're pulling an artist like Dave Matthews who can sell 20,000 tickets into a venue that can hold 7,000, it is going to get gobbled up quickly. What doesn't help is that as soon as you get in to buy the tickets, people see a resale ticket that's on sale. It's like, well, how did that already happen so quickly?
Beau knows this because I was already complaining about Dave Matthews band tickets, and I still haven't gotten mine. But yeah, I was number 1,500 in the queue.
We
and I
were
didn't get a ticket.
1,000. We got 6, but we already sold the other 4 to our friends at ticket value. You're welcome, Bethany. I guess so. Let's talk about just personal HR nightmares. Like any good stories to share with us along the way, learnings that you've had.
Why don't you tell us the story you told me about
when I first
time you had to fire somebody?
The first time I had to fire somebody, no fun to ever do that.
It's awful.
I hope I never have to do that again. And I don't mean to make light of it, but I had no experience. So maybe you can learn from my no experience if you're out there just starting out. But we've all heard the phrase, you have to let someone go. I'm going to have to let them go. So I called this gentleman in the office, who, by the way, has a much better job now. So we'll throw
You
it
did
out
him a
there.
favor.
I did him a favor. And he sat down, and I said, I'm going to have to let you go. And he was very excited and sat up in his chair, and he's, okay, go where? Like I was sending him on
where
an
am I
assignment.
going?
And I was unprepared for that question, and I said, just go away. And it was a very bad experience for both of us.
You're just going away.
Go away.
I was like, you can't work here anymore. And so it's funny looking back on now, but it was just talk about being unprepared for me in that role, and just kind of learning from that and understanding that that's a very heavy situation to be in, and certainly no fun ever.
It's hard. I told you at my old company, we were nice people, and we used to use the word separated versus terminated, right? Like we're separating your employment effective immediately, right? And sometimes there were employees that said, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Separated. And I would just have to say, you're fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is.
People
I'm
know
like,
what
let's
that
stop using what we think is the softer term and just call it what it is.
We had,
right?
I had an experience with someone who we thought would be very angry and irate. And my old boss at the time, he came down and we did it together. And it ended up not being as severe of a situation as we thought it was going to be. But I'm curious, like, what's the recommendation when it's somebody that's kind of being a little bit of a troublemaker in the office, and you think maybe they're going to be loud and boisterous? Do you take them somewhere separately? Do you ask the rest of the office to leave? Like, how do you handle that?
If
I may, put my interviewer hat
I love
on.
it. Unfortunately, I think both of us, I can speak for myself, I've had to let hundreds of people go.
Yeah, thousands.
Sometimes in big groups of hundreds of people, and sometimes
Is this where
as
we put your email
individuals.
address up on the screen?
Mass layoffs. Yeah.
It's like literally for a while when I first met Andy, my husband, I was like doing the George Clooney up in the air thing, like flying out to California and like letting salespeople go in hotel rooms. But I think just for your average, like run-of-the-mill kind of termination, someone's not performing, you've given them plenty of notice, but you still have to prepare. And this is something that I coach managers on every day, and I'll let you chime in. But like, preparation is everything, and trying to anticipate who you're talking to, how they're going to react, what are the extremes, like what's the spectrum of the reaction? Is it like, shutting down and not giving you any emotional response and like, not even looking at the paperwork you're trying to present them with, to the guy who, flips a table on you. And, I've been in that situation where basically me and a department head, it's like, hey, this guy's going to be probably pretty pissed. Like, and so we strategically, here's where we sit related to the door. Here's where they sit. Be prepared. Like if we have to flip it, we look at each other and like flip the table back on him. Having legit, like having people, especially if you're doing it, if you're on shifts and you're doing it at night or early in the morning when there's not a lot of people around, like call in the sheriff's department wherever you live. The sheriffs are wonderful. So calling them ahead of time and saying, hey, I'm about to have this like contentious termination meeting. We're hoping everything goes fine. But could you have somebody maybe like circling the neighborhood in the event that we've got to call 911 and like and get somebody in here to help us out in a more serious way. But yeah, I mean, you got to just kind of assess your own situation, physical security, how they're going to interpret it. Do you, you got to know who they are, right? Like, do you be apologetic? Do you, basically, you don't want to get into dysfunctional delivery too, which it sounds like maybe you were doing a little cushioning, like trying to be super, super nicey about the breakup.
We were. We just really wanted to be like, can't we just change the locks?
Yeah. Which is basically what Elon Musk did. So
I think that, like Lisa said, I've had all kinds of different situations, in the business I was in for years. Like there was only so many places you could go to have those conversations. So you didn't have all the options in the world. I would say if you think, that you need some support, then you got to prepare for that. I worked in a business. Luckily, we did have some loss prevention people in the store. So I had a few times where I'm like, I need you to stand outside my office, please. If you hear any yelling, knock on the door and come in.
If you ask someone, because it's like eventually they're going to find out. So I had this weird like juxtaposition. It's like, I don't want to give them a hint that this is going to happen. But at the same time, it's like, hey, meet me at the library where we've never met before or whatever. It's like, okay, for what? Well, now, like, do you say for what?
Yeah.
Like,
I think if you've warned people about performance and they understand, those, even though it doesn't always go well, have been easier than like I've had situations where, I used to work for a major retailer and we were closing the store and we would bring the whole store together and
do
make the announcement. And like, there were hundreds of employees there. They all reacted a little bit differently. And, I had all the different situations, but I'm always of the belief of like, they're allowed to feel how they feel right now, right? Now, if they're making a scene or, any kind of violent things are happening, then okay, that's a different story. But I can handle anyone screaming in my face and yelling at me. They're upset. They're going to be upset. And I have to not let, I was like, I'm going to continue to be the same empathetic, kind and caring person.
Are you allowed to say like,
I can.
this sucks? Like
I always was like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
we don't want this.
Right.
You know, like,
Yeah, we never wanted to get to this place.
yeah, we didn't want to get to this place, and we'll do everything we can to support you through what we need to do. You know, every situation is a little different on like what we're doing on that other end. But I always told my leaders, I'm like, don't ever lose your empathy and compassion. Even when I was terminating people from stealing they were stealing from our company. I still walked into every one of those conversations. They're human beings. They made a big mistake and they're going to regret it because they're getting prosecuted, but at the end of the day, I'm like,
That's
it's
the
up
last
to
line you say.
me. I would leave the room.
You're
and
gonna
then
regret it.
The
You're getting
team would go back
prosecuted.
in and be like, and the police are on their way. That's after I did my yeah, but just never lose your empathy for people. I think people can feel that. So I think terminations
people
go.
hug me after I
Me
fired
too.
them, and I'm like,
yeah, I'm sorry I disappointed
Sometimes there's
you.
a weight, right?
Terrible.
It's like, I didn't know how to quit, right?
But
It's
I
like, I'm
will
glad you
say
did that.
some of
Yeah.
it is dependent on
You
how
gotta treat people
comfortable and
nicely.
confident the person delivering that news
Yeah.
is. And
Right.
that's typically people react
Yeah.
to
Yep.
other things.
I can look back at 28-year-old
Yeah.
Beau delivering that news the first time. I was probably shaking and trembling, and I didn't know how to
Right.
act.
just probably trying to get it out, just so
Right.
you can be done with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
unloading on the person across from you, which is, I mean,
Right.
that's all about preparation, and like practicing with somebody across the table. And if you've never done it before,
unfortunately,
preparing is
doing
really
it.
You're like,
Like
no,
getting in there
and
and
then
actually
again,
doing
and
it.
no, I'm not acting anymore. You're terminated.
Yeah.
Well, that is something like I coach people on too. Is like you talk about dysfunctional delivery. It's like you practice so, especially if you're an introvert and you've not done it very often or never done it before. It's like practicing to the nth degree that you actually come off as like mechanical and like a robot when you're sitting across from the person. That's even worse than like unloading on somebody sometimes.
Right. Or just like reading
What
the
about,
paper.
it's not necessarily
Yeah.
new media these days, but what, like texts? I mean, that seems about as, I wouldn't say cowardly, but as disconnected. But at times, is that...
It is so cowardly.
That
is
like
horrible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
See, I'm glad
believe
I asked.
firmly-
I haven't done that. I'm asking.
I don't even
Asking
like
for
to
a
have
friend.
like
Both
serious
feels like we're yelling at him.
conversations. Yeah. I'm like, as women, we're like, no, he broke up with me over text.
no, yeah, no.
No, but I just firmly believe that texts are for like quick, easy, not serious, important life things, And
You could
so
text
that's
me, come to my office right now. I'd like to talk about your performance.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then I go in there and I'm like, oh, crap. But
Yeah. Like we're not putting a Twitter announcement that we're
Right.
like
firing
firing
everyone.
everyone.
We're going to hire. Yeah, you
Again,
can
Mr.
reapply if
Musk.
you'd like in
But
6
yeah, I
months.
mean, we've
Yeah.
seen all of those articles, over the last couple of years of like the Zoom meeting that went bad. I mean, listen, during COVID, we had to do some mass reductions in force, and we had to do it over Zoom. There was no other way to
Right.
get the announcement out. But it was methodical. We thought it out. We had a long session for Q&A. We thought through all the stuff. We had the right leaders delivering the message. So there's a way to do everything.
Yeah. And you said like cowardly. Like my big thing is, and anybody listening that's ever worked for me, I'll be like, oh my God, here she goes again. Just like managerial courage and like really sitting down and asking yourself, like, what is the message I am trying to get across to this person? And like having your bullets and non-negotiable with yourself. Like you got to get those things out, the honest feedback for your folks. They deserve it.
I was about to say, it can better
They
them if
deserve
they
it.
are willing to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if they don't, there's your sign.
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you need help moving on, you know who to call.
Cue telephone number.
Yeah, cue the
Right,
telephone number.
right.
Exactly. Okay, so if you could bring anybody to any of your amphitheaters, who would you bring?
Oh, gosh, we started to check. I think I would bring Sturgill Simpson.
Who is Sturgill Simpson?
I don't even know who
No,
that
no.
is.
Oh, I feel
I'm
bad.
sorry, Sturgill, if you're listening to this podcast.
Okay, Sturgill
He's not.
Simpson is, at this point, he's an artist that I've been trying. First off, no, I take it back. I want a mulligan.
Okay,
I would
all
bring,
right, that's fine.
have you heard, you may not have heard of him either, Billy Strings,
No?
who's,
Maybe he's been on your...
Are these?
No.
What kind of
So,
artists
hold
are
on, let's
these?
look
so
this
they're
person up.
Americana / bluegrass
Okay.
or alt country, whatever you want to
That
call
might be
them.
why. I
Billy-
don't know anything in the
Billy
country
Strings,
genre.
Billy Strings is riding a rocket ship to the moon right now with
Wow.
his stardom and fame. He's selling out coliseums everywhere. But
Okay. We're checking
in
him out.
2020,
Is he so
January
young?
of 2020, he's a young kid. I think he's in his 20s. I had him booked for one night at Greenfield Lake Amphitheater. It sold out within seconds. So
Wow.
we added 2 additional nights. So it was a 3-night run, sold out within seconds.
Wow.
Well, this was in January. Fast forward a couple months, COVID hits, and we have to reschedule the shows we're going to do it for 3 weeks because we're only going to be shut down for 2 weeks. So we're going to push the
Right.
shows back.
Remember when we thought that?
Yes, right. And then so those 3 weeks came and went, and we rescheduled again. And then the 6 months came and went, and by then Billy Strings had strapped himself firmly to this rocket of fame. In some circles, apparently.
Okay.
And he
alt country. We need to go
Clearly
Google
not
that.
in our circle.
So he's changing the face of bluegrass music in
Oh, that's
general.
cool.
But nonetheless, that's who I'd like to have here. I do.
You booked him once. You can do it again.
I've been
Billy
trying.
Strings, come on.
Now he's kind of even too
He's
big for
more
the.
famous than he was 3 years ago.
Yeah, I can't
Those
get him.
ticket prices are going to have
get
$45
him.
fees.
He'll be at Live
So-
Nation or Live Oak.
Not Beau's fault.
But yeah,
can sell
Billy
bigger
Strings would be
venues
the
now.
artist. He's just a real, true, honest, good person. You can tell he donates a lot of money to
that's
like school
cool.
programs to
Yeah.
purchase instruments and stuff like
You
that.
got to give back.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever consider non-concert shows, like all these new like podcast live shows, like Girls Gotta Eat and some of the different live shows?
That's actually something that I want to do. I have not produced anything like that before,
Yeah.
and I need to get outside my comfort zone. I'm pretty conservative when it comes to gambling, so to speak, because
Yeah.
a lot of times concert production is gambling, and I will use the strengths of the 2 radio stations that I programmed to kind of help prop that up. But podcasts, there's been some like children's shows, like I don't know if it's like
Yeah.
touring Blippy or whatnot, but especially when my kids were little, I was like,
dear.
oh my gosh, I can make
We got to get Blueberry.
But the bar sales there aren't necessarily maybe the parents.
Really?
I don't know.
I was like, I feel like the bar sales
Smoothies,
at a
you could just, like,
child
sell
show
tons
would
of
be
$12
big.
Yeah.
juice boxes.
Yeah.
What a deal.
Whatever.
It's a 24-ounce juice box.
Yeah, but you're not allowed to bring juice into the stadium, so sorry.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
that's
Billy Strings. And then who's been your favorite artist to work with ever?
Lucas Nelson, who
Oh,
is
okay.
Willie Nelson's son.
Yeah.
And if you may recall, in 2018, Wilmington was directly hit with Hurricane Florence, and we had produced Lucas Nelson shows prior to that. We became close friends, but he went out of his way to text, guest seeing the aftermath on TV and asked what he could do. And I was like, oh, that's nice of you. People sometimes. And then a couple days later, he's like, no, what can we do? Should we come down and play? Well, he did. He and his band, he flew his band at his expense
Wow.
to Wilmington. We did a Overflow was the, for Florence, Overflow was the charity, which helped a lot of the downtown business. We raised $68,000.
Wow.
Oh my gosh,
It's a
that's
major amount
incredible.
of money. Yeah.
Wow.
And he really, again, he started that and then he wouldn't let it go. Because I thought, that's nice of him, but what are we going to do? And he was like, well, should we do a show? Well, yeah, we did. So he is a hero of mine. He's a young guy
Oh.
too. Yeah, so,
That's amazing.
but he is.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so nice.
Lucas Nelson, Billy Strings. These are people
And
we need to go
Sturgill Simpson.
familiar.
I'll look
And
into all
Sturgill
3 of those.
Simpson.
Yeah,
I'll send you
I'm
links.
not any good in the like country genre.
You're living in the
Who-
South, girl.
Yeah, somebody last year came and I got free tickets to something. I'm like, I don't even know who this is.
Who was? Do you remember? Was that,
It was
that
that,
much of an impression?
Well,
It was that Dave Matthews guy?
no, yeah. Well, I mean, I did go to college, so I was a Dave Matthews a fan, obviously. That he came during Azalea Fest week on the Thursday show.
Colt Swindell.
Brantley
Gilbert.
something.
Brantley
yeah,
Gilbert.
that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I got tickets, so I went.
That's all you have to say about
that. I went.
You know what? That's the thing with music, and to take it somewhat full circle, is that I produce what I'm familiar with and I'm comfortable with, and we talked about maybe kind of quote unquote gambling or taking a risk on. But aside from just podcasts, really trying to get outside of my comfort zone and recognizing that there are other genres out there. There are a lot more people that may not have heard of these artists or care to.
Yeah.
And trying to learn their music and understand, just doing that research on them and trying to expand Wilmington's, live music scene outside of what I'm familiar with or comfortable
Yeah.
with has been a challenge. And hopefully will continue to be one because that keeps life interesting. But,
I would love to see that because personally, there's a lot of country concerts for me, so I haven't been going to a whole lot.
I mean, you look at them. I look at a
I
music
get it.
festival
I
lineup.
live in
and
the
I'm like,
South.
I know the top 3 people now,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
the other 40, 100 bands. I'm
That's
like,
every festival
I'd like
ever.
to see a
Now,
little
but
more
wasn't.
like indie singer songwriter stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he's
some
got
of
the
that.
Indigo Girls coming, right? Yep.
Sold out.
Yep. And then what about your music festival in Beaufort?
yeah, Beaufort Music Festival, which is I'm
Is it
from
sold
Beaufort,
out?
North Carolina. It is not sold out, no.
Okay, so go get
yeah.
your tickets to
Oh,
Beaufort
yeah.
Music,
There you go.
Yeah,
Music
thank you very
Festival.
much.
Beau Gunn Presents.
Yeah.
Beau Gunn Presents.
Yeah. But to clarify, so yeah, Beaufort, or just for some who may have never even heard of that, people think that it is my festival, but I'm from Beaufort, which
Okay.
is the town.
Which is
but
funny,
I'm
Beau.
named
But
after
because
the
it's
town.
got
So
it.
people thought that it was, some people here thought that was my music festival. But
We've never been to that
we
music
book it.
festival. We
It's
got to
really
check
cool.
it out. When is
it's
it?
really small. I mean, it's very small. There's a couple thousand people there on the water. And Beaufort's a really small, beautiful little
Yeah.
fishing town.
It's like the most picturesque fishing town
There
like
it is.
in all of
Yeah.
North Carolina. You got to go.
There you have
When
it.
is it?
It's May 19th and 20th.
Oh, May 19th.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
We
right
just
before
made
Dave
plans for you.
Matthews.
We may
Okay.
have some softball
Right before
games
Dave
at that
Matthews
point.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any final comments?
I just thank you for having me on here, and I hope that whatever my experience or insights have been helpful to at least somebody out there listening
definitely.
and
I
watching.
think
Yeah.
following your passion and like pursuing music in any way can turn into like this big successful thing like you've done for yourself and for our community. I just thank you for everything that you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool.
Where
Thanks
can
for
people
being here.
find you?
Where can they
He's
find
deleted
me?
all his social media
I
accounts.
He's
they
not
can
on
find
social
me-
media. He doesn't want you tagging him,
Yeah.
and I couldn't get Taylor Swift tickets.
They can find me at Greenfield Lake Amphitheater at a concert.
Okay, go buy those tickets. Check out
Go get
the
your
Beaufort
selfies.
Music Festival. Yeah, but thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out Work Talk, Leith HR Group's employee engagement app that we've created for our clients and beyond. And have a great day. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Cool. Thank
That
you.
was fun.